Hello and welcome to episode number 96 of the Perth Paisley podcast. And following on from last week with Adam, still away in Canada, I've maintained an upgrade in guests. We're joined by Edinburgh Evening News and Scotsman writer, Terrace Podcast co-founder, and the guy who co-founded the Peter Haring and Alex Cochrane fan club with myself. It's Craig Fowler. Craig, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'll take exception to that. I am you could have the Alex Cochrane fan club. I am the founder of the Peter Haring fan club.
That's, to be honest, I will give you that. That's very fair. Massive thank you for coming on. We've got an interesting game to discuss. As everybody knows, this past weekend, was the first Edinburgh Derby of the season, where, as me and Laurie spoke about last week, Hibs were a bit of an unknown in some qualities. Hearts didn't get off to the greatest start against Ross County, so everybody was really excited going into the Edinburgh Derby. Again, not really neutrals, because every non-Hearts or Hibs fan I have seem to hate the Edinburgh Derby because it's always really shite games for a neutral. But this one definitely had stories that anybody can attach themselves to. So the first talking point is that Robbie Neilson named a changed side from his team against Ross County, and it was a team that it seemed most Hearts fans wanted. We changed shape. We went to a 4 at the back, 4-2-3-1. It was Gordon in goals, as Stephen Kingsley is still absent. It was Michael Smith, Craig Halkett, Kye Rowles, and Alex Cochrane in the back 4. Peter Haring and George Grant meaning that the 2. Then the 3 was Barry Mackay, Alan Forrest, and Liam Boyce in behind Shankland. What did you make of the team when you first saw it? Were you surprised he went to a back 4? Were you happy he went to a back 4?
Yes would be the answer to both questions, because earlier in the week, Joel put it up on Twitter, Joel Sked, obviously of the Terrace Podcast and a view for the Terrace, and the Scotsman as well. He seems to have tethered himself quite well to me. He said that he put up the team that he thought would, I think that his favourite pick for what he wanted the team to be. And I agreed with him that is what I wanted, but I just didn't see Neilson playing with a 4 at the back, because last season I'm pretty sure in every game against him, certainly the Tynecastle games and certainly the 2 games within 7 days of each other, with the final game before the split in the Scottish Cup semi, it was a 3 at the back, and the game at Tynecastle, Hearts had actually played with a 4 at the back for, I think, a few weeks prior to that, and yet he changed it up, something that I really wasn't happy about in the first half of that Edinburgh Derby when we found ourselves a goal down. So yeah, I was certainly surprised, but also I was pleased at the same time, mainly because I think if you take both Stephen Kingsley and John Souttar out of the team, and obviously Souttar's away and Kingsley is injured at the moment in time, then I think the 3 at the back really loses its lustre, because you don't have players like them with the quality that they have in terms of either running with the ball in Kingsley's case, or passing the ball in Souttar's case, to really optimise that 3 at the back. So I was certainly happy that he changed it. What I would say is that you called it a 4-2-3-1 there, and I suppose it's just the kind of way that football is nowadays. Because, when we didn't have the ball, Liam Boyce certainly dropped into deeper areas to help out the midfield. But I think you find everybody doing that in any sort of like 4-4-2 style. So I would actually call it a 4-4-2, because when Hearts did attack, I think Liam Boyce was pretty much right alongside Lawrence Shankland. And that was a surprise as well, because I did think that Boyce would, even with Hearts had possession, would have taken up a much deeper role. But especially in the first half, when I was kind of keeping a closer eye on what Hearts' shape was, it looked like a 4-4-2 to me for the most part.
I think that's fair. A lot of people actually on Twitter that I saw were commenting on the fact that Boyce and Shankland were up top together whenever we progressed. And again, like last week against Ross County, a lot of people wanted to see Boyce and Shankland together. They played for about 15 minutes together against Stoke, but obviously, how much can you read into pre-season? And the first kind of 10-15 minutes of the game perhaps didn't go the way a lot of people would have expected, because I wouldn't say we were on the back foot, but they definitely had more of the ball. They were creating more chances. Ellie Youhan was very sprightly and looked to use his pace to get in behind very often. There was one notable ball over the top of Michael Smith, where Youhan got in and then managed to hit a shot at Gordon. It wasn't that solid a shot, but early chance. Chris Cadden played a fantastic ball in on his near side, but no one could get a toe to it. And this was kind of a theme from the start of last week's game against Ross County, where we're off to a bit of a slow start, and it seemed that a ball in behind is really affecting us, and teams against us seem to be getting a lot of joy with that.
Yeah, that is a bit of a concern this early in the season. It's maybe something that they could put right with a bit more practice. It sounds like a weird thing to say, but a bit more practice in game scenarios. Because, and this is something I'll maybe come on to later on when we discuss another aspect of this game, that Hearts have only, I mean, compared to Hibs and compared to County, Hearts have played 4 less games. It's, you know, on the one hand, it's a good thing that you're not competing in the Premier Sports Cup because, well, who wants to start the season in mid-July? And also the reason that Hearts were not in this Premier Sports Cup was because of the participation in European football. So yeah, you don't want to be in it, but I wonder whether it can give teams a bit of an edge this early in the campaign, because you can say what you like about playing friendlies or about training harder or whatever. I don't think there's anything in football that quite matches the intensity of an actual game, and a competitive game at that. And there's movements that you make, there's ways that you push themselves, there's a certain intensity, there's a mental fatigue to it as well that you just don't get from playing pre-season friendly matches. And I wonder whether that's just an aspect of Hearts' game that they need to just face more in actual, you know, real life combat to kind of use like a war phrase, and whether they can add it out. But it's certainly something that's a bit concerning so far, because there isn't a lot of pace in the Hearts team in general. And I think, again, something we might touch upon later on, that they could do with pace at both ends of the field, I would say.
That's very fair. However, we did start to get our foot on the ball. Shankland had a chance where he popped up on the left. However, Rocky Bashiri managed to make a block before, 3 minutes later, the goal scoring did happen, maybe not in the way that most people expected from the game, but Barry Mackay picks it up, and in every Barry Mackay way possible, he plays a beautiful no-look chipped ball over the top. Lawrence Shankland controls it on his chest and allows the ball to run across him and plays it through. Shankland's off the mark for Hearts. We'll first talk about that. Do you think it's a handball?
It looked like it for the replay that I saw. I wouldn't say it was necessarily that conclusive from all the. To be fair, I only saw one of them that kind of appeared to strike his arm, so there might have been another one where it was a bit, but it was kind of the angle of the camera I saw. You couldn't tell completely 100%. I would guess that it did hit his hand. It's one of those ones that when VR comes in, it's going to be very interesting, because if that was the main angle to tell it, I don't think there was enough to say that's definitely hit his arm and chalk off the goal. But it did appear to hit his arm.
Yes, definitely. However, regardless, it counted, and Shankland is off the mark. Pretty much the perfect game to get your first goal. I can't remember who it was. I think it was the Maroon Report on Twitter speak about that. In terms of like chance to goal ratio, Shankland is incredibly high, because we haven't actually given him that many opportunities with the ball at his feet in front of goal. But whenever he's got it, he's at least put the ball on target. And of course, did score in the pre-season friendly against Stoke, and now has scored a competitive goal. How are you feeling about the Shankland signing generally? And how do you feel you can work with this front 4/3/ whatever we're going to be doing going forward?
I was a big fan of the signing. I think anybody that was really being negative about it and basically pointing to his top flight goals record, I think was doing so either willingly or unwillingly without the context around it. Mm-hmm. Shankland earlier in his career, when he was at Aberdeen, and I don't know if he had a loan spell or a Premier League club, I can't really remember, but when he was at Aberdeen, he's basically said himself that he wasn't fully fit. He didn't take football quite as seriously as he needed to. He was a bit overweight, I think, as well. I think that was something that some Mirren supporters, when he went on loan to them, commented on, that he just wasn't really in football shape. When he went to United, he realised that he had to really knuckle down, and he did so. And he came back to the Premiership, I should say. There would be one of these guys that calls it the SPL. When he came back to the Premiership, he was with Dundee United, but that Dundee United team, I watched them a good few times that season. Mickey Millen's Dundee United, they were one of, if not the worst team to watch in Scottish top flight history. at least since I've been watching it, watching the top flight closely, which will be around about, I don't know when Terrace started, about 2009, 2010. I think they've got to be the single worst team to watch in terms of entertainment. Shankland, it was so defensive, and Shankland from most games was like 30 yards on his own, nobody anywhere near him. He still managed to get 9 goals that season, and it showed and helped sharpen other aspects of his game as well, so that he was having to hold the ball up, he was having to work hard, he was having to do all the kind of nitty gritty stuff as opposed to just putting the ball in the back of the net. And I think overall that would have made him a better player. And then to take that man, the guy who's become a better all-round striker, is a terrific, like even some of the goals he scored that season, the instinct he showed with some of his finishes was excellent. To pair him with Barry Mackay and with Liam Boyce, because Liam Boyce, he's known for his goal scoring, but he's also quite a creative forward as well. And I think it's true that Hearts tend to play at their best when Liam Boyce plays and plays well. So to have the three in a front, either a front three or as a two with Mackay playing off him, or however he also wants to set this up, typically going forward, it should be conducive to Shankland scoring a lot of goals. And here's a prediction, here's a bold prediction for you. If he remains injury-free, he'll be the first Hearts player since John Robertson has scored 20 goals in a season. Book it.
Right, well, I cannot wait until he now no longer scores any more goals for the rest of the season. As if his
knee will explode on a week on Thursday, and that'll be it.
Yeah, exactly. After that, the kind of main chance for Hibs came. It was a pretty big chance. Eli Yuan puts a great header, and Gordon just does what Craig Gordon does and makes an excellent save at close range. And then first half kind of petered out a wee bit in terms of we were starting to get a much better foothold in the game. Started to kind of just have a bit of control, passing it around. Our back line generally seemed to be really impressive. Halkett and Rolls. For Halkett, especially for someone who's previously been criticised for being part of a two, I feel like generally he played very well. Rolls is obviously still coming into it. However, I've so far been very impressed with Rolls. And then the second half almost couldn't have started better for us because we just came out the traps absolutely flying. Barry Mackay had 2 very big chances. One of them where he gets the ball in a great position, but takes a wee bit too much time and allows himself to be tackled. Then there's one where I've seen a lot of people criticising everybody for it, but I think it's just quite a good save. Shankland gets the ball in the middle of the box and pings it at Marshall, which is kind of just at him, but then the rebound falls to Barry Mackay. Probably should score it. However, Marshall makes an incredible save as well. At this point, I will be honest, there was a part of me going, oh, we're going to rue these missed chances.
Yeah, I could have had that feeling as well for a little bit after, because I think in the first half, each side had periods when they were on top, and I think Hearts scored during their period when they were on top in the first half and looked threatening. And I thought that was quite crucial. And then when they didn't do it at the start of the second, I was like, I still kind of had faith, because I don't really have much faith in Hibs to pull a goal back. Mm-hmm. And it was really the spectre of Martin Boyle that was really causing me concern. But even then, I kind of thought, let's see how fit he is. And then obviously, he didn't actually look that great to begin with. But I did have kind of similar concerns, I would say, that they didn't take those chances. But that double chance, I think at the time I was thinking, you've got to score those. One of the 2 chances you've got to score. Having watched them again, Shankland is a very instinctive kind of prod out. Yeah. I'm not sure how much more he can really do about that. It's just a bit unlucky that it goes so close to Marshall as it does. And Mackay, at the game, I thought you've got to be giving the keeper no chance there. Seeing it again, I didn't quite realise how much his first touch, which kind of set it up perfectly in front of him, but still probably took it just a bit too close to Marshall. Yeah. And Marshall gets out well and spreads himself. The only thing I maybe would say is that Mackay's kind of final effort is a kind of effort just to blast in the back of the net.
Yeah.
As I'll now make this joke about Mackay twice in the space of 2 days. Why does he finish sometimes like he's trying to play a through ball? Because it'll just be perfectly accurate. Just, aim for between David Marshall's legs, or aim at the front post, or aim at the far post, and just caress it like you're caressing a through ball, and it'll end up in the back of the net, because all these through balls find their target. It's just when it comes to shooting, he seems to hit the goalkeeper a lot more than... Maybe that's it, because sometimes you can train forwards to just aim for the goalie, and if you hit it wrong in any way, it'll go in. He hits it too cleanly, so stop aiming for the goalkeeper.
He's too good at a football, and just like, no, you need to be rubbish more and just aim it elsewhere. But you mentioned obviously the big talking point from this game was the return of Martin Boyle for Hibs. Announced the day before, Hibs had said they were going to be doing an unveiling of him 15 minutes before the game, but then it was also revealed that he was on the bench. For me, it was the easiest thing in the world to say. It was the changing point in terms of the final result, because Boyle came on, but crucially as well, we changed our shape and brought on two players who have received the ire of the Hearts fan base in the 48 hours from this alongside the manager. Nathaniel Atkinson and Toby Civic came on. We changed back to a 3 with Rolls, Halkett and Civic there. Do you feel that the formation change played as big a part as some people are saying? Because there was an element of, even as you said, Boyle didn't look as on it as many Hibs fans would have hoped, or potentially as Hearts fans would have worried, because I felt our game management from that point up until around the 80th minute was actually still pretty solid.
It's hard to say, because at the time I kind of thought this is a little bit early. I still thought the Hearts were kind of in the ascendancy, and I really wasn't sure about changing the shape at that point. However, yeah, after the change shape, Hearts still, to me, like for the first, so when was the change made? About 65 minutes?
63rd minute.
63rd minute. So for the next 17, 20 minutes, I still thought Hearts looked the team more likely to score the second goal. They looked completely comfortable. Didn't really see Hibs scoring. And so the reservations I had about the change of formation didn't really come to pass. Hearts still looked like they had full control of the game. Now, you could say, like, what if they'd kept the shape? Okay, so I think Boyce eventually had to go off because he was knackered. And that's something we could get on. A lot of Hearts players look knackered. So Boyce has to come off. Who are you bringing on instead? Like, are you going to bring on Giannelli and play him through the centre? It would still be the same kind of, you could maybe stretch Hibs a bit more and offer a threat in behind, but you'd still struggle to hold the ball up as Hearts did in those closing stages, and it'll just keep coming back. And if you do that, you're also, losing an extra man from midfield. And Hibs, I think, done quite well in bringing Jake Doyle-Hayes off the bench. He's not somebody who, with the exception of maybe his first month at the club, is not really impressed. And I'm sure he was somebody that I quite rated before he went to Easter Road. But he was very good at kind of finding pockets of space and getting Hibs on the front foot in those, last 10 minutes or so. So would that have meant that they just had more of the ball and they put us under even more pressure if we kept it? And I think a factor that's not been really discussed, and I think you said, like, there's a lot of ire at Civic and Atkinson. I think it's quite unfair, because I don't think, if you're looking at the goal Hearts concede, Civic can maybe do a wee bit better at the end, but he's caught on his heels a little bit, but I think his is like the least egregious mistake of about 4 players. And I also think Atkinson done quite well when he came on. And another thing to consider is that Mikey Smith's race was done. And if you're doing that, then you can maybe say, like, okay, if we have had better players to plug into the gap, then it would have been better than Atkinson and Civic. So maybe you could criticise him for that. But the thought of keeping the shape and Civic going to right back didn't fill me with a lot of confidence. And Atkinson going to right back didn't fill me with a lot of confidence either, because I don't think he's that great a defender. So to put the two on, I think, was kind of Nielsen's way of going, all right, they will make up one Michael Smith, and that way we can nullify the threat of Cabrera, who does look a good sign at left back for Hibs. So there's a lot of factors and I don't think you can say with any degree of certainty. People like to, because that's what football fans like to do, but I don't think anybody can say with any degree of certainty that Hearts would have been better off just sticking with a 4, because I think there's a number of factors at play that means that basically just went into how Hearts eventually chucked it away.
Basically, yeah. And as well, Nielsen blames the midfield for the goal. Nielsen says that the throw-in that came, it was actually the midfield. We lost the battle in midfield, and that allowed it to break. So a lot of people were speaking about how the defence was the issue with the goal, but Nielsen himself said, no, they were on the back foot because the midfield didn't win their battles.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, I looked at the goal again. I've looked at the goal a couple of times. Because I don't remember seeing Cammy Devlin in the picture at all.
Yeah, neither do I.
So that would maybe speak to that. I think Heron goes to make a challenge and gets blocked off for the ball. But I still would say that there are, like I said, there are 4 defenders who should all do better. Kai Rolls allows himself, he's a bit late in getting there. So I think that's maybe part of it. But he then tries to trip Martin Boyle. And I remember seeing people say, like, he just needs to take down Boyle. He does, he tries. He sticks his leg out to trip him up. Doesn't get enough contact, ends up tripping himself up. And that means that he's behind Boyle. And obviously we know Boyle's pace. So he doesn't have enough time and space to make up the gap between them. Craig Halkett, for me, takes far too aggressive an angle in challenging Ellie Youhan. He's got to just show him down the byline and try his best to block the cross. By going with such an aggressive angle, he nearly gives away a penalty, really. Yeah. And then that by taking the angle, he allows Youhan to just poke the ball past him and then make it easier for the cutback. And Alex Cochrane, as good a game as he had, I think it was maybe a little bit of lack of communication between him and Rowles. Rowles, to me, he's got to be screaming at Cochrane, you've got to cover Boyle. But I think Cochrane should also be aware that Martin Boyle is walking into the penalty area unmarked and should maybe be busting a gut more to get over. And then, as I said, Civic maybe gets caught on his heels a little bit, but he would be the one I would blame the least out of all of them. And yeah, maybe the midfield was supposed to be a bit missing. To be fair, I just think in general, and it was the atmosphere in the stadium, when Bashiri missed that chance, I think everybody just thought, that's it, game over. Yeah. But I remember looking at my phone, as I do often, when it gets to like games like that, because usually if I'm covering the game, if there's no stop clock, then every journalist will kind of have it on their phone, like what minute it is. But for games at Easter Road, where there's always a clock, but the clock goes to 90 and then doesn't change, I'll always put it on. Even if I'm in the away end, I'll always put it on to know how much exactly left. And when Bashiri missed that chance, and everybody was screaming at the stadium, and Hearts fans were starting to basically sing like the game was over, I had a look at the time, there was a minute left, and I was like, hang on, this isn't finished here. Yeah. And I think the Hearts players did think it was finished, because I think they just fell asleep at that goal.
You've kind of hinted at it a couple of times during it, and I think it's a very fair point. I don't know if you want to call it conditioning or anything like that, but general fitness seemed to be lacking. And do you think that's down to the fact, as you said right at the start, that Hibs have been playing more competitive games than us? And whatever you want to say about pre-season, they are for fitness, they are for getting that up, but there is nothing to replicate actual match fitness in terms of competitive games, and especially a highly emotive atmosphere like a derby as well. Do you think that we're maybe just playing catch up a wee bit and in a couple of weeks this won't be a problem? Or is there a part of you that's thinking, I need to look at that? Obviously guys like Smith, who are towards the end of their career, is a different kettle of fish, but generally as a squad.
I'm a wee bit concerned, because I still wouldn't have imagined them to look as tired as they did, even though I do think they are playing a bit of catch up, and there is a certain advantage to be had from just having 4 more competitive games than your opposition to start the season. I'm concerned because there is games coming up thick and fast soon. So to make that up in terms of conditioning, they have to do it very quickly, because Hearts want to get off to a start that's similar to they did last season, when you set down a marker and you say, right, third place is us, to just kind of build up confidence in everything and just kind of believe that, yeah, we can do it, we can play in Europe and we can play in the Premiership, and we can still, hold on to our crown as easily the third best team. You want to have a quick start. You don't want to be playing catch up at any point. So there is that kind of concern. But I would think that I do think the stuff to be. I do think they'll generally be all right. And another factor you have to take into account as well is just the way that it's going. Like we've all played like 5-a-side and stuff, and like or even 11-a-side. I've not, because I'm never good enough to play 11-a-side. But I played 5-a-side. And when it's like at the end of a game, and you're like chasing it, you're working so hard because you've got a goal to keep up. And on the opposite side, when you've got something to defend, your legs do feel heavier when you're defending rather than going for it. Mm-hmm. And I think that maybe kind of played a factor in it as well, that it's just kind of, right, let's boot it forward, let's keep our shape, let's hold on. They've created nothing in the second half until like the last 5 minutes, when Boyle had that chance, Bashiri had one, and then obviously Boyle's one at the end. Mm-hmm. Let's just try and see it out that way, because they've not really done anything to that point. But yeah, so like I said, a little bit concerned, but I think there were a number of factors at play that means it's not as huge an issue as maybe some have made out.
I think that's fair. And obviously, it feels like a defeat for us. It feels like a win for them. But as you yourself said in your kind of review after the game as you were walking back, and there's a lot of people have said, in the cold light of day the next day, you can look at this from a Hearts perspective and say there are definitely positives to take. And one of them is Alex Cochrane, who we've mentioned. Now, all last season, I have graphs, I was sharing the graphs on Twitter with all these defensive stats that were he's excelling in everything. People were bored of him. When he was announced at signing, there was some people who were like, oh, that's not very exciting. I was buzzing. The graph came back out. I was very excited. And then the opening 2 games of the season, in my opinion, he's been the best player in a Hearts jersey, both games. And thankfully, a lot of people now seem to be loving him and accepting him. And I remember when you were doing your review last week on the Terrace show, you mentioned Alex Cochrane's name about 10 times, even in games where he wasn't involved at all. So how did you feel he did overall? Apart from the goal where we kind of can go, oh, Alex, come on.
Yeah, no, I don't think he played well. The reason I really like Alex Cochrane, love's too strong a word, because my heart is reserved for one man, and he stands in the centre of midfield, mopping up play constantly. The reason I really like Alex Cochrane is just because, like, 9 out of 10 times at least, he just does what he's supposed to do. He makes the right decision. He does the right thing. He stops off an attacker. He plays the right pass. He just so consistent in that way. And those players, I think, can often be underrated. Somebody that just does what they're supposed to do. Because how many times we see players in the park that can be good still, but can also do moments you're like, what are you doing? What are you thinking? Alex Cochrane never really has those moments. You can always kind of rely on him to just do his job. And I think in the first 2 weeks of the season, he's done it and excelled even further. I thought he was one of the best players against County as well. Not to mention he's 2 assists in that game, although one of the assists was just kind of lump the ball forward to Barry Mackay and let him do everything.
He knew what he was doing. He knew.
They have a telepathic understanding. It's like, right, I'm going to take an outrageous touch that takes 3 players out of the game. You just need to put it here.
Exactly.
So and defensively, I just think he's excellent, and he's part of. I don't know if this is something that is being like an active game plan from Hearts in terms of their signings, like going back to last season. Because I look at guys, and that was why I was a little surprised that they had Jacob Davenport on trial. Now, having watched him play for Blackburn, I was actually quite impressed and would have actually been quite happy with Hearts signing him. Even though a lot of fans are like, what are we doing signing another defensive midfielder with kind of limited, ability going forward. But they seem to have signed a few players like that. Like last time, I was thinking Benny Beningame, Cammy Devlin, Alex Cochrane, all young guys, all very good at the defensive side of the game. And Nielsen talks about quite a lot about developing these players. And I think the plan is, it seems like the plan is to get a lot of guys that are good at defending and develop them as attackers, kind of thing. And Cochrane's certainly, it's only 2 games so far this season, so I didn't want to get ahead of myself, because the downside of his game last season, even though he would rarely do something that would have you tearing your hair out, he still wasn't impacting games an awful lot last campaign. But we also need to remember as well, it was his first proper season playing competitive football. He'd only played under 23s games for Brighton before, and that's a glorified reserve league. So the fact that he got better last season, he's now signed permanently. And with players that sign permanently as well, it can sometimes go 2 ways. It can sometimes be a bit Ryan McGivern at Hibs, where it's like, I've impressed on loan, now I'm here full time, and watch me be rubbish now that I've got a contract. Or it could be, right, my future's now, made up. Now I know where I am. I've got once he signed a 3-year deal.
3-year deal.
This is what I need to do for these 3 years. The uncertainty of being on loan has now been removed. Now I can really concentrate fully. I've got nothing in the back of my mind. I'm a Hearts player now. Let's go. And certainly the indications are so far, and I really hope they continue, that's what's happened with Cochrane.
Until we've, again, jinxed him, and now we'll...
Yeah. It'll be him that runs into Shanklin.
Yes, exactly. And
both of these will explode.
Exactly, and now we're left with no one, and we are hated by Hearts Twitter again. Before we move on to Dundee United this weekend, it would be remiss to not mention Peter Haring, because I think you are the only person who is a bigger fan of him than me. And Adam has always been criticising me for liking him this much. Well, now I've replaced Adam with you, who is just in love with him. You sent a tweet very correctly saying, has he ever had a bad Derby performance? I can't think of one. I love him. Speak about how much you love him as well. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because he's perfect for these type of matches as well. Because not only is he brilliant at breaking up play and stopping the opposition. I mean, the guy's like a wall, and he's great at winning the ball back. But he's got such composure and poise in the football that you need in an engine room in an Edinburgh Derby, where things are just moving at 100 miles an hour. It's so frenetic. You get no time to do anything, and yet Peter Haring seems to find time. And his range of passing is great as well. So not only can he win you the ball back, he can then step away from the pressurised situation and ping a ball out to somebody in space and get you on the attack. He's perfect for these occasions. And it was Tony Anderson, or one of our resident Hibs fans, who said, like, Haring tiring in the last 10 minutes of that game was maybe had the biggest factor in Hibs getting back into it, because he was stopping them doing everything, like including that challenge he put on Boyle, where he cleanly won the ball and stuck Boyle about 5 feet in the air. But he just seemed to lose a yard in those last 10 minutes or so. And then that's when you really saw Hibs getting a lot of joy, which again goes back to the kind of our points on conditioning and whether this is something we have to be worried about. But until that moment, it seemed like Haring was just going to be like, no, stop, you're not getting through, which is what he'd done similarly, I think, in the semi-final as well, in the second half of that, where Hearts were having to come under a lot of pressure, and he really stood up and did his job.
He's just also sexy as fuck. So
yes,
that helps as well. Exactly.
Very cool guy.
Exactly. So after a very insightful, nuanced, kind of punditry style discussion of the Edinburgh Derby, we had to get him back. We couldn't go 2 weeks without Adam being on the show. So calling in from Canada, it's Adam Kennedy. Adam, how are you doing?
I'm living life, mate. I'm having an absolute blast over here. And the only downside to my holiday was seeing a 95th minute Hibernian equaliser in the Edinburgh Derby. Other than that, I'm just psyching myself up to eventually get back over the water. And we land on Thursday morning in Edinburgh, which is great because I know there's going to be grey, there's going to be plenty of clouds, and I'm going to immediately wish that I could get back to Canada as soon as possible.
Hey, it's my birthday on Thursday, so you're arriving back in the country for that.
I mean, an even more depressing reason to be back in Scotland. Great.
I've really missed you. So yeah,
thanks, mate.
Adam's only going to be here for the next kind of 15 or so minutes, because after this, me and Craig are going to be dissecting the Dundee United game, previewing that, and then we've obviously got the quiz as well. But it's an Edinburgh Derby. Wanted to get Adam's thoughts on it. So I'm not going to make you sit through the equivalent of Adam going through everything like we just did with Craig, but general points feel like need to be spoken about. The first one is the team, because as me and Craig have just discussed, a lot of people after the Ross County game wanted the 4 at the back. Craig, as our listeners will have just heard, you won't have, disagreed with what the formation was, because he felt that instead of a 4-2-3-1, which a lot of people viewed it as, he actually just viewed it as a standard 4-4-2. However, how did you feel about the way that team played up until the 63rd minute where we changed to the 3? Obviously, it was due in part to your favourite player in mind, Stephen Kingsley, not being available. Do you want to see that going forward? Do you think that's the better formation with the team? What did you think?
I do want to see that going forward, to be honest. Robbie's got a history of favouring a 4-2-3-1, and ultimately, if we are missing Stephen Kingsley, it ain't worth trying to shove anybody else into a 3 at the back, as we later saw in this very game. So, very annoying, but I was actually pleasantly pleased with the selection. Of course, being over here, I still had like dad and pals saying that they were giving me sort of the general feedback from the Ross County game before I watched the highlights. And by all accounts, Haring and Smith in the middle were terrible and needed changed. So when I saw George,
is the word that I think many viewed as.
Let's go with that. So when I saw that George Grant was chucked in there, I thought, okay, this is a bit ambitious from Robbie. It actually looks like we're going to try and not counter from the get-go per se, but actually try and dominate possession and try and carve out more opportunities from the get-go. Needless to say, in that first 20 minutes, up until ironically we scored, we actually didn't look as though that would be the case at all. And I thought it was a really shaky start, if I'm honest. The stuff that's come out about our supposed star performers in this game, I thought failed to get going almost immediately. And again, sort of weirdly, it was from the goal that we then sprung into life, bizarrely.
I think that's fair. As me and Craig had a discussion about it, I'll ask you as well. Did you think it's a handball for our goal, or do you think it's close enough to not be overturned if VAR was in place.
See, this is what really irks me, because it's like I'm gonna sound really stupid here, but what constitutes an arm in this scenario? Like, forearm down low, yes. Does Shankland really take it down with his shoulder? Because it kind of looks like that, but
I think
kind
he takes
of
it
not.
down with his bicep. I think it's a handball. I said to Craig, I think it's a handball. If VAR is there, I think that gets overturned because he moves his arm in the direction to use it.
Like, don't get me wrong, if I was a Hibs fan, I'd be screaming for it, but that's because of the nature of the game. If it's in any other fixture, would I really be that petty and want it disallowed? I don't know. They sort of say that you're meant to give the striker the benefit of the doubt. I don't know. Again, I'd look like a hypocrite because chances are I'd be screaming if it was given against us. So I don't know.
Well, regardless,
I honestly don't know.
Regardless,
up until that, we were shite. So
yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat that.
Your man has got off to his goal scoring start. Great
Don't
game
pin this on me, mate. Don't.
No, I'm saying that's a genuine positive.
Look,
he's off.
He's
off.
I'm pleased, but I've reiterated this countless times to you. We've seen this tale one too many times in the past. There's a striker that immediately looks good. Great, this could be the one. I'm just biding my time. But in fairness, I did message a couple of my pals saying, "Oh, there's Lauren Shankland amongst the goals. That's nice."
Well, let's maintain the positives. I want to know who you felt were the standouts for us over the 90 minutes. As you say, we didn't have the best start in the opening 20, but then for the majority of the game, we were kind of in control / the better side. So who did you feel? There was a few people on Twitter that were picked out, but I'd like to see who you immediately think of when you think of the high performance in that game.
There's two that come to mind, and both are in an attacking sense, actually. I thought Shankland was really good. Mm-hmm. For the most part, and ironically was set up by Barry Mackay, who for once looked as though he was performing in a big game up until a certain point. I was really disappointed to see Alan Forrest taken off. And why not go like for like? Why do we have to change the shape? I get that perhaps he wasn't as involved as we'd like, but I felt as though the two wide players were far more effective than anything they had in the middle of the park. That seemed to be the case for Hibs as well. I thought early on they were getting a lot of joy down the right-hand side. I thought Chris Cadden was looking really menacing. I thought that Melkerson actually looks more like a winger than he does a centre forward. And they were just looking to find Yuan at every available stage, who was causing us problems. But I just, the change of shape just really irritates me, because we've said, like, no Kingsley, no Partey. I'm not interested in a three in the back unless he is one of said three. So
before we move to the change, I knew this was going to happen. Me and Craig.
I'm trying my best to bite my lip here, but it actually angered me at the time. As soon as Forrest came off, I'm thinking, why have you done this?
Right.
I want to know. I'd love to know what is the logic behind it.
Interestingly, you didn't mention a single person that I thought you were going to mention in the positives.
Because who did you think I was going to say? I thought Gordon had a couple of decent saves.
Hearts Twitter decided kind of on 4 players that were standouts, and interestingly, you named none of them.
Well, so I've got to be honest. One of them was Cochrane, who I thought was shocking at the start, but grew into the
9
game.
out of 10.
I thought he was terrible first half. I thought he grew into the game and was one of our better performers in the second, but I thought first half, up until we scored, I thought was really poor, actually.
Well, that's not the first half. That's the first 20 minutes.
Okay. But either way, either way, he's not carving out opportunities from left back, is he?
But so Cochrane was the main one that everybody was speaking about after the game.
Yeah.
Haring was in the next one, where it was 8 out of 10. Haring was back again. He got.
That was all right.
I thought he was brilliant. I thought, and speaking to as Craig, as listeners will have just heard, as Tony Anderson of the Terrace Podcast, Craig said to me that Tony Anderson felt that was the turning point in the last 10 minutes when Haring tired. It allowed Hibs to really come into the game more.
I don't notice Big Pete tired. He just moves at that same pace for me the entire duration of the match. So I didn't see that.
And then the other two were Halkett and Rolls. Halkett was kind of the main one.
Halkett was better than Rolls. If I had to choose one centre half, I thought Halkett was really good.
People
massive fan of his elbow in the first half that Hibs were all raging at. I think it was on Yuan, and he just played it. He sort of slips it into Grant, and they were all absolutely raging. That was great content. But yeah, okay.
Well, as we can see, Adam's way more down than me and Fowler were. So
I just thought in the middle of the park we offered next to nothing. I thought George Grant was woeful.
I thought Grant was very poor.
He was terrible. And yet, I'm waiting for this supposed set piece delivery that everybody's waxed political about. I thought our set pieces were shocking.
Everybody was saying that. It was like everyone was really excited for his set pieces. Then I think it was the worst possible game for everybody to say it because he had really poor set pieces.
I think we actually looked more menacing from a Barry Mackay corner than we did ever in that game. So
the change of shape. Speak about it. Anthony Brown, and as everybody Fowler just said, and everyone was saying Smith was knackered.
Smith, I can accept. That's fine. Smith for Atkinson is a logical change. I don't necessarily mind that.
Not according to Mr. Craig Fowler, who panics at the idea of
because he's going to say that he can't play in a back four.
Yeah, he can't defend.
Right. Okay. Or why not? Well, who came on? Civic for Smith.
Civic and Atkinson came on for Smith and Forrest in the 63rd minute.
Why?
So it was.
I'd love to know.
What I would imagine is it's to counteract Martin Boyle, and I will say this. And again, apologies, listeners, if I'm repeating myself, but I felt, and speaking to other people, Hearts and Hibs fans alike, the change of system didn't affect us until the 80th minute, because for the next 17 minutes, we were still in control of the game, we were still conducting it. Martin Boyle wasn't getting on the ball as much.
I'm not having
through him.
I'm not having that it's as dominant a display as some of our fans think. Some of our fans think we should have won that 4-5.
I think a draw was over the 90. I think a draw was a fair result. Obviously,
it's as though we've just chosen to select their points, we've just chosen to overlook their chances because they did cause us a couple of problems. There's one where Yuan tries to bend in at the near post. There's one I say with Cadden whips in or Melkerson, somebody down the right hand side, and he actually connects with it poorly, which again, decent opportunity. But I hear what you're saying.
I think obviously when you concede in the manner that you do, a draw doesn't feel like a fair result when it's the last kick of the game.
A massive kick in the balls.
But I think looking at the game as a 90, it was a fair result. I want to get your thoughts on the Martin Boyle goal because we just spoke about it there.
Shite.
Robbie,
absolutely shite from a Hearts perspective.
Robbie doesn't actually believe it was the defence at fault. He thinks it was the midfield because we lost the battle in the midfield and it put everybody on the back step. As our listeners will have just heard, Craig disagreed slightly. He actually felt that Civic was the least at fault in the goal because he feels that, yes, Civic should attack the ball and his position should be a bit better. However, he feels that Halkett, Rolls and Cochrane are all more at fault.
This is what I want to address. So if the midfield are at fault, then why have we not got a creative midfielder to bring on for George Grant? Because the two that come on, Devlin and Halliday, are negative changes for Boyce and Grant, like I say.
Yeah. I think
that just screams negativity. It screams inviting pressure. And the Rocky Bashiri header just before it,
just at the end.
I thought that was it. I thought that somehow we've managed to hold on here. And needless to say, we still end up pissing it away, as only Hearts could.
Well,
is Robbie actually going to win at Easter Road? Hibs are supposedly in disarray. You'll never get a better chance to do so. And we've just pissed it away at the very last second. What the fuck?
So I love how different these chats have been. I know Adam obviously hasn't heard the chat with Craig, so I'm fascinated to see what you think when you listen back and how listeners are currently feeling. Where it's,
I don't think Fowler likes my views on Twitter, if I'm honest. Like I don't think we follow one another, so I can't see that he'll agree with me. To be honest, I'm probably too emotional for him.
Obviously, the result happens the way it does, and as you say, complete kick in the balls. You feel really aggrieved by it, and you can't really formulate your thoughts properly until the next day. The next day comes. Do you feel that generally, on the whole, it was a positive game? If you look at the 90 minutes, do you think there are concerns? Do you think there are more concerns than positives? What's your take on it?
I guess I guess there's two ways of looking at it. I could view us as fortunate, given that I thought for the most part we were pretty shit, to come away with something. I'm just being honest.
No, I've missed this. I've missed this so much in the last couple of weeks. I'm so glad you're back this week.
We picked up 4 points from 6, and I'm still
And
raging.
you're raging.
Oh, only this football club can do this to me.
Only you can do this to this football club is the actual way that's.
Do you know what the worst thing is? I've actually correctly predicted how this, 2 Hearts games have gone, and I've correctly predicted both scorelines for who scored. And I'm still angry because I'm just not what? This is nonsense. I'm so upset. It actually did put a little damper on my holiday. There, I said it.
Well, that went exactly as I thought it was going to go. Before we leave you and allow you to go back to your anger-filled Canadian lifestyle, I want to, just before me and Craig get on to speaking about Dundee United, obviously me and Craig will discuss it, but how are you feeling ahead of this weekend and what do you think the score will be?
We better beat them, because if they're playing Thursday night in Holland and having just lost to Livingston at home at the weekend, you'd like to think the Hearts would do them, but I don't know. I probably scrape another 2-1 and be delighted with it, because it looks like it's a great 7 points from 9, but really I'm not overly impressed. I don't know. Look, do you know what the annoying thing is? Europe's going to come, right? And these games we're just going to have, I'm just going to have to suck it up and be grateful of the points. You have to be anyway, but it's not. We've actually looked better in pre-season than when the competitive stuff's got underway. How does
that makes sense?
But
playing against teams who were playing competitive games where we were playing random friendlies, were obviously going to look worse.
But they want to build up their fitness and everything.
Yeah, but there's difference. There's difference in competitive games and friendlies, regardless of the opposition.
I don't know what I'm trying to say. I'm left underwhelmed. I'd like a body or two more. A bit of creativity would be great. That would be really nice. Looking at the bench, everybody's talking about bringing Gary Mackay-Steven or Josh Ginnelly or somebody of that ilk on to counter, and I'm like, yeah, okay. It's not, it's hardly world beaters, are they? I don't know. I just want a bit pizzazz. Somebody that can conjure stuff out of nothing. It's almost like I told Hearts to sign Dylan Levitt all summer and then they subsequently didn't.
What are they doing? Not listening to you. Anyway.
Look, Barry Mackay, potentially Lawrence Shankland.
GMS.
And Andy Halliday.
You're currently batting 0. They're cancelling each other.
Still a better recruitment rate than Craig Levine. I will not hear any different.
And we'll leave it on that. So thank you for coming on, Adam, as you're in Canada. We all look forward to welcome this negativity back for an hour.
That's great. I've actually been really positive throughout here. It's like the weather, everybody's morale just coincides. I'm going to come back to the pish and rain, be negative about Hearts again, but I can't wait for that. So that's the one consolation I will take coming back to Scotland, is I'll actually get to go to Tynecastle and moan. Can't wait.
Well, love that. So, listeners, please stick around, as now you'll hear from me and again Craig Fowler as we preview Dundee United.
See you next week, team.
But we're hoping he's going to be as sexy and as amazing this coming weekend, where we play Dundee United. The game that last season continually was amazing. All games against Dundee United and Hearts were really fun to watch from any perspective. They've had, in my opinion, and in most people's opinions, a pretty good transfer window. Obviously, the Dylan Levitt signing was very important. For me, the Stephen Fletcher signing kind of went under the radar a wee bit, because I feel like he's what they've needed for a while, just somebody to link up. Hopefully, he doesn't do that this weekend. They do have the added aspect of coming off their conference playoff. Second leg will be played this week, which is why the game's been moved to Sunday. What are you expecting from Dundee United? What are you expecting from us? Do you imagine we're going to keep the 4, go back to the 3? What are you thinking?
Oh, that's a very good question. I suppose it might depend on the fitness of Michael Smith, and if they feel that he's ready to go again, then I would think they would keep the 4. If not, I'm not that fussed if they switch it to the 3 and just play with, because they can play with Boyce up top with Shankland still and just have Mackay as a number 10.
Yeah.
They could keep the 3 with Boyce on one of the wings. I don't prefer that as much, but I still think that would be fine if he can find the gaps. He has played well in games where he does take up that position. It's not his best. I think he's best when he's up top, but you want Shankland there, and I think you'd then secondary want Boyce as a kind of in a more a natural number 10 position. But so I'm not sure that it matters a whole lot what the shape's going to be. I'm a bit concerned about Dundee United, and I'm a bit concerned about the possibility of Hearts taking them ever so lightly because they had a hangover on Sunday already by beating AZ and then losing at home to Livingston. So there might be an expectation that the same thing's going to happen on Sunday, and I think that's a very dangerous mindset to get into. Also, as well, I think I've got a theory that hangovers in Europe, and I've not really crunched the data on this, but I did do it. To be fair, I did do it like 10 years ago or so when I was looking at Celtic in the Champions League, like after playing Europe in the Champions League, and then what they would do on the Saturday.
Right. Okay.
So this theory was born out of that, but I've not done a deep dive. I've not like looked at every team. I've not like done research like anybody who would do research for a living would do. But research for a living. Of course, I do research for a living. You know, you know what I mean? Like somebody who writes theses.
Just
somebody's going to clip that out and say, "See,
yeah,
he does do research. All these journalists are the same." Yeah, somebody who like, does nominal research for a living. The bare facts. If I was somebody who had the time to do a proper deep dive, I would look into whether teams actually suffer more hangovers when they play at home than they do when they play away. So if you play a home game on a Thursday and then you play a home game again on a Sunday, because I think it feeds in, it's not only the players, it's the crowd as well. Because a home crowd, they've had this game 3 days before, the atmosphere's electric, it's a bigger crowd than normal. They get a huge result, so the place is absolutely bouncing. Everybody comes out of it spent. You come to Sunday with as much respect as possible. It's Livingston at home. Livy are a good team. I have much respect for what Livingston do. David Martindale, I think, is class. But it's still, it's not a team. It's not a game that anybody looks forward to in the calendar. Yeah. Nobody gets the fixtures out and says, right, we've got Livy at home, so we need to be right up for this
Come
one.
on.
And I think that feeds down for the stands. I said as much last season when Hearts played Ross County at the end of the campaign. It was 0-0. I remember like talking to people in the pub afterwards saying like, "Oh, they just came out flat." I was like, I don't even know if the team came out flat or because I think for the first 5-10 minutes of that game, Hearts looked all right, but it's just like they got nothing from the crowd.
Yeah,
because the crowd were just like, "Who cares?"
I was in hospitality for that game, and I was just like, I didn't care at all. I don't care.
Who cares? It's Ross County at home. We've already qualified for third place. We're just waiting on the Scottish Cup final, and that dripped down to the players. And I think that's probably what happened with United on Sunday as well. Whereas when it's an away game, you know you're up against it already. Yeah, there's the added aspect of having to fly back from the Netherlands, and that's not going to be ideal. But you're away from home, you're up against it. Your away fans will make a lot of noise because all away fans do. And you just know that you have to be, you're not, as home players, you're not going to take it lightly either. You're going to, right, that's one hard game, and now we've got another one. So I think if we, at any point, don't take Dundee United as seriously as we should, then we're going to be in trouble because, as you mentioned, there's a lot of good players on that side now. Get Jamie McGrath as well. Jamie McGrath.
Yeah, of course.
Jamie McGrath, Dylan Levitt, Tony Watt, Stephen Fletcher. There's 4 players right there who could definitely hurt Hearts, and they've got a defensive bedrock that's very strong as well.
I think that's fair, even with your lack of research. I think that's all very, very
it's kind of like crunching numbers research, not like see. I do research on Dundee United by watching them.
Yes, true, very true. I want a score prediction and a goal scorer if you have one.
I think it's going to be a tough one. I think it's going to be a result that will please Hearts fans, but not a performance. So I'll go 1-0, Shankland to score, and do one of those rubbish celebrations.
You won't get this prediction right if he doesn't do a rubbish.
If he does that, then that's it. Got it wrong.
I'm going to go the same, but I'm going to go Barry Mackay to go, look, I can score. I've listened to Craig Fowler and he taught me how to shoot. So we're fine. Right, before we finish, we're going to do the quiz, which Laurie Dunsire got embarrassed in last week. However, no one has ever got a clean sweep in questions. Me, Adam, or Laurie, no one's done it. So let's see if you can do the first one. There is 4 normal questions, and then the last one is a who am I? So, number 1 is last week's opening game against Ross County was a special occasion for what reason?
Like, what was it? Somebody's birthday? What? Special occasion for right, I'm gonna guess. That's definitely wrong. I don't know. Was it Hearts? Wait, unless you're talking about the memorial to Drew Busby, no?
No. Oh, right, now I feel bad because no, that isn't what I meant.
Right. Was it Hearts' first game in league game in July in I don't know, a decade? I don't bloody know.
No, it was Peter Haring's 100th game for the club.
I missed that.
Well, you call yourself a Peter Haring fan.
Have I done more research?
Exactly. See, it's in action. Shocking. Right, these are so random, but this is a historical one. When did Hearts last win the Scottish top flight? And it's multiple choice, so you're fine. Is it A? 19...
No, I'm pretty sure I can tell you.
Okay.
Oh, shit. Actually, maybe not. Actually, give me the multiple choice.
Okay. A, 1958. B, 1960. C, 1959.
I think it's 1960.
He's off the mark. It is 1960. Smashed it. Well, with the fact that next week we're going to be playing in Europe, who was the last Hearts player to score in a European tie?
Connor Salmon.
It was. Well done. It's still just really depressing. So that's the last game.
Scored, got man of the match, got booed.
Yeah, exactly. Then with Dundee United, our opponents this weekend, as I said, it was all really exciting games last season, but how many goals were scored across all 4 games last season between the 2 sides?
Right, okay. Let me try to remember. Right, okay. So, hang on, let me get my fingers out here. Yep. Right. What was the first one? First one was 2-0, wasn't it? Aye, so that's right. 14. What was the... Oh, wait, there was 3 games at Tannadice, wasn't there?
Yes.
Is it 18?
It is 18. Well done. 2-0, 5-2, 2-2, and 3-2. You're doing very well. Right. Let's see if you
I'm annoyed at the first one, because now it means I can't... I just wanted the clean sweep. I wanted to be the first person.
Well, we'll see if you can get the who am I, because up until this point, Adam has never got one. I've got one, and Laurie got my who am I within the first clue. So it'll be very impressive if we can do that. So who am I? You've got 5 clues. I joined Hearts from an Italian side who went bankrupt. I was once described by an Italian newspaper as an unspectacular player who fans will take time to love. Any ideas yet?
Can I have a guess? Or
yeah,
does that mean I'm wrong?
Okay. What we'll do is...
Well, I was going to have a guess after the first one.
Okay, right. Well, then we'll count this.
I think it was the club not... Was it Salernitana? Were they going out of business? I don't watch the Thai football anymore, so I don't have a clue who's gone out of business.
I can tell you, it was not them.
Right, okay. The guess was going to have was Stefano Salvatore.
It is not Salvatore.
Right, okay.
So, this opinion of an unspectacular player who fans will take time to love was clearly shared by Romanov, who allegedly really didn't like him.
Oh, Julian Brellier.
It is Julian Brellier. Well done.
He'd come for Italy.
Yeah, so Venezia went bankrupt and we signed them. The remaining clues were going to be just weird things. Is that in an interview, he said he was unhappy that Bruno Agua had been signed in January and was playing ahead of him and hinted that he wanted to leave, but then immediately U-turned a day later and said he was just tired in the interview and wasn't really being genuine. Then the final clue was going to be I was at the centre of a controversial sending off in a European tie because he got a booking for wearing an earring and then he elbowed a player in the face.
That would have made it. would have been very easy.
Yeah.
The Evening one, or even the one before, because that was maybe why he put in such a bad tackle on Bruno Aguilar in training. That Aguilar was out for 18 months.
Yes, exactly. But you did very well. You did very well. You've done better than Adam because you're 1 for 1 on the Who Am I's. So.
Do you think the Who Am I's a lot harder for him? Because how does he? Surely he would have got that.
Well, maybe no. He's really bad at them. The 2 previous ones I did was, I can't even remember. I might have them here actually, so I can just do them for you. I do. Right. Let's see if you can get these as well. So, okay. Right. First one is, if I can actually get it to open. So, last season, I was a social media hit because I scored for a club and Hearts were referenced in the goal. If you can get it for that, I'll be very impressed.
No,
I did. I would have been very, very surprised.
It does sound vaguely familiar, though.
Right.
Well, possibility I wrote an article about and I've just forgotten.
Maybe. I then was apologised publicly on behalf of Hearts for a bad European performance.
Sorry, say that again?
So I publicly came out and apologised on behalf of the club.
Oh, right.
For a bad European performance that he featured in.
Okay.
I have played in Finland, Hungary, Switzerland, Scotland, and Spain.
Yeah, these are harder.
Yeah, these are harder. And then finally, I came back to Scotland after playing for Hearts and played against them as early as 2015.
Okay, right. I apologise for a poor performance. Came back to 2015.
Yeah.
Right, so that was the first season where Hearts came back up after the championship.
Yep. So he played against us that season.
Right, aye. So I'm trying to go for bad European performances prior to that. Right, getting pumped off a Spurs would be great, but I'm trying to think of. Oh no, because you said a goal scored. I was going to guess a goalie there, but that wouldn't be him.
Yeah.
Right, so
I can tell you the year of the bad European performance.
Yeah, aye, that would help.
09-10 season.
Oh, right, aye. So that was getting stuffed by Dinamo Zagreb.
Yes, it was.
So who was in that team? I mean, Nadi was especially bad, but it's not him.
It's not him.
Did Jose Goncalves?
It's not. That's a good guess. That was the one that Adam gave for me and I got right.
All right. Can really just name that team. Ishmael Bouzid. Right, this is Laszlo's team. So second season of Laszlo's team. So it's definitely not Mikey Stewart. Who else is in that side? Trying to think. Because a few left at the end of that first season, didn't they? Like Miko left, Aguilar left, Karapidis left.
Yep.
They were replaced by generally a lot of shite.
Yep.
Nah, I don't think I'm ever going to get this.
Ruben Palazuelos.
No, none of that. Yeah. Now that you said it, none of that is familiar.
Yeah, that's fair. And then the last one that I did that Adam didn't get even close to was I signed from a Champions League side, although I rarely featured for them, if ever, before joining Hearts. I scored only 1 goal for the club. I was viewed as an internal political pawn between Vladimir Romanov and Shaba Laszlo.
Is this David Vitvin?
Oh, you've got it. Adam is going to be furious because he spent 15 minutes and then guessed somebody random. So that's apart from Palazuelos, you've done very well there. So apart from getting Haring's celebration wrong, you can hold your head up high. But generally,
I really missed that. I would have got a tattoo.
I was about to say
mark
exactly.
the occasion.
I was expecting you to come with a T-shirt with his face on it with that.
That completely passed me by.
Shocking. But generally, massive thank you for coming on. It's been a great laugh.
No problem. It's the least I could do after all the podcast for us. You've helped it.
No worries at all. But yeah, please advertise everything that you do. So folk will already know, but if they don't.
Yeah, so the Terrace Scottish Football Podcast, and we also, if you like to hear Daniel talk about wrestling, then make sure to check out Review from the Terrace, which is our kind of pop culture feed. And one of the shows that we have on there is View from the Turnbuckle, which where Daniel and Duncan Mackay and occasionally a guest talk about wrestling. And we also do other stuff on that, like look at Scottish films, kind of popular TV shows, music, blah, 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 like loads of extra content as well as just our normal Terrace stuff. And if you are a fan of the Terrace, I always like to give a plug for the Patreon because that's the way we make money. So please give us more money.
A perfect way to end.
I don't have time to do YouTube stuff, so
no, that's fair.
That's the way we make money.
I'll be back next week, sadly, with Adam. He's back from Canada, so no more fun guests until he allows it, basically. But we're back to speak about Dundee United and preview the European game. So until then, see you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.